Hello, it's Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to our channel. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about karate or martial arts in general for seniors and special populations. But before I do, I did want to actually mention it. I know it is February and a lot of people wait for April to do their taxes, but if you're in the US and you were going to get a refund, I would actually suggest maybe doing their taxes early because we don't know how long or how often our government's going to be shut down, and so that way you can get your refund when you want it, rather than have to wait a few months. I'm figuring, there'll be a shutdown in a couple weeks, anyways. I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe everyone will get along after. But about seniors and special population, I will say I'm working with a student who's taking classes in how to teach adaptive physical education, and she wanted to do a martial art program. And a lot of times people may actually take a step back because a lot of us have an idea that martial arts are supposed to be done a certain way and we should never change them. Interesting thing is, if you're a fan of Shoshin Nagamine and you read his book, you actually find that he does say that there are times that it's okay to change stuff, especially as new information comes out. And I actually also remember a story which really does show this point. If you remember, if some of you read the story of Matsumura disarming a samurai, you remember that he loses one of his fingers. I think most people say it's his little finger, but I've actually heard one story where it's his index finger. And one of the things that happens is, as soon as someone loses a finger, the way that they handle any weapon, like a bow, or if they're doing a lot of grappling, they have to modify how they do stuff. They are missing something. And would someone say that Matsumura wasn't allowed to adapt his martial art to him because, well, it should be done a certain way? I would actually say no, and tell you why. I want you to think of the Pinan katas, Heian if you do Shotokan, and think of how similar yet different each one is. Now, these aren't really that old. These katas aren't really that old. We're talking about 1901, 1905, depending on who you ask. And most people say Itosu was the main person who made the katas. And one of the interesting things with this is he made this, and he had a lot of students who started their own styles and taught his kata. What we find is, for the most part, everyone changed something in the way they did karate. Some people went lower. Some people, the hand placement would have been here. Some people would come up a little. Some people down. Some people, instead of doing a kata here, they bring their arm by their knee. Instead of doing their kata with their hand on their shoulder, they'll actually bring their hand to their knee. And so we do have changes, and these changes happen almost immediately. Itosu would have been alive when some of these modifications were done. And so apparently nobody had a problem with changing the way katas were back in the day. Now, today I know a lot of people talk about how they do the original karate the way it was done 2,000 years ago because someone sold them that idea. Truth is, we don't really know what these katas look like except for in pictures. And most of those pictures are not of Itosu, but of his students teaching classes. And so, we really don't know what these katas would have looked like. I do try to do some research, and I try to check out where changes may have been based on what was the most likely, pretty much what I used is I looked at different styles of karate and try to see where they were different from the others. And what I found is, chances are, at least Pinan Shodan look like the way Shoshin Shibana taught it, rather than the others. If you actually look at the Shitaru version, you see a lot of similarities. Stances change because of the way people did it. But it looks like, like I said, if you do that, it may be that there is a way to figure it out, but we don't know. So anyways, back to seniors and special populations. What these are, first let's talk about what it is. Seniors are pretty much anyone technically over 50 or 55. Now we don't really think of a senior as 50 or 55. Usually we're talking about, in their 60s. But in reality, we do want to actually look at 50 and 55 for a lot of reasons, which I'll talk about later. The other thing is special populations. These are anyone who has a specific injury or anatomical deviation that we need to adapt physical fitness for. If you think about it, if you have someone who is asthmatic, you don't necessarily want them to ask for permission to go get their inhaler if they're having an asthma attack. You usually have to tell the student, look, if you're having an asthma attack, just run, get it, because we don't want to have the liability there, and we don't want the student dying on us, more importantly. So that's actually why we do have to change the way populations are. Now let's take seniors, some people over 50, 55, and start looking at what's different. Now, I'm actually fortunate. I'm 44 years old, and I don't have any health problems. I don't take any medication. I don't have blood pressure problems, but I do know that a lot of people my age have started getting high blood pressure. Interesting thing is, if you actually have high blood pressure, a lot of times the blood pressure medication can actually cause a dizziness. And so if you're over 50 and you're taking medications, you sometimes have to adapt how you train based on what you are taking. You have to understand that certain things you may not necessarily be able to do because of medication. The other thing is physical ailments. You sometimes have people who are extremely tall. And one of the things is people who are active, extremely tall, may end up having a lot of knee pain early in life, maybe 40, 50. And so a lot of times these are things that we do want to consider as a special population. You think about it, someone who has knee pain, we don't want to exacerbate their knee pain. So in these special populations and even seniors, we have to adapt the martial art to these people. That's not to say they shouldn't know what it should look like. What it means is they can't necessarily do it a certain way for physical limitation. That doesn't mean that they're not going to get benefits from doing it, and that they couldn't necessarily teach it. I mean, you think about it. Some of us have probably met some really great older masters who may not be able to do the kata anymore, but they can teach the kata perfect. Now, the problem with doing special population classes. The student that I'm actually working with doing this, she is taking classes in how to deal with special population. They're teaching her how to evaluate movement, range of motion. They're having her do a lot of different physical assessments on the individual. And most people who are teaching martial arts, not all of them, some of them do, most of people do not have the expertise to understand what the range of motion should be and why you should stop a certain way. We've all seen the person who, well, everyone should look exactly the same when they do kata. Well, if everyone's healthy and has the same experience, maybe. But things have to adapt. We have to adapt things to the individual. Some of the things that actually can happen in special population is, well, let's take someone who had a car accident. Now, a lot of times people get in car accidents, they have lower back pain, and it's very important to understand the anatomy of lower back to help keep the posture correct, so they don't have back pain that's going to lay them out for a couple of weeks. The other thing that happens is a lot of times people get people to twist without realizing. Usually what happens is the bottom part of the body is moving around this way and the top part is moving this way, and that twisting can do a lot more pain, can cause a lot of pain in the back, especially when someone already has back pain. Shoulder pain, you think about it, a lot of people have done other different martial arts, and understanding how to protect the shoulder can actually help a lot of people who have damaged their shoulders. I have done a video on it and you can actually look at it. Remember though, when you're dealing with special populations, it is more important to understand the limitations, the clinical implication, and how the person should move than getting the person to fit into a box of the art. And what I mean is, let's say in our version of Pirangodan, we go down to one knee. If someone's older and they can't go down to the knee, well, we can actually modify it for them. Remember, the karate, martial arts in general, should be able to be enjoyed by everyone. And by limiting access to it, not actually understanding that some people will benefit in martial arts by just small modifications, really does limit us as martial artists and limits the benefit that martial arts can give other people. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you are interested in teaching seniors and special populations, I would suggest going to a local community college, enrolling in a class and teaching adaptive PE. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a nice day. Goodbye. How was that?